Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums in the Co-Captain's Chair, all the way from jolly old Scotland. It better be jolly because he's a very jolly guy. Stephen Reid. I knew I'd get a laugh at you saying that, right? How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm called many things, usually a lot less, I don't know, complimentary than jolly. So I'll take that. I'll take jolly.
You're always jolly when you talk to me. I don't know. I've been dealing with you for over a decade. You're always jolly. I don't know.
Bring out the best.
I love people that are always in a good mood and just happy to be, and in this case, talking music, and that's what we do here.
Yes, so, that's why I'm in a good mood. You see.
There you go. And I think you're in a good mood because you like this band we're going to be talking about.
I like this band. Right. Not enough albums to talk about, but I like this band.
Not enough. So I'm going to get the elephant out of the room right off the bat. All right. So we're ranking the 4 studio albums of Cinderella, U.S. hard rock, blues rock, glam rock band, whatever the hell you want to call them, because that's all they got. And I actually, up until not that long ago, was of the opinion that, you know what? I never listened to Cinderella in the day. All I remember are those handful of hits and the way they looked. And I basically kind of threw them into the category of Poison and Faster Pussycat and, Trickster and all that kind of stuff, whatever. Motley Crue, that sort of thing. And then and I don't remember if it's conversations you and I have, or I had conversations with some other people, but then I heard one of their other songs. I don't know where I heard it. Maybe I just investigated myself and I was like, wow, that's not really what I expected, because of course I knew the 4 songs, right? That's basically about it. And then I listened some more and I was like, that's pretty good. And I'm like, boy, that Tom Kiefer guy can play a mean guitar. And you know what? I dig his voice. I always thought his voice was really cool. I just didn't like the way they looked, because all I remember is that first album, right? And all the teased hair and I was like, they're just another one of those bands. Well, you know what? Whether that was their choice or whether that was the record label's choice, that's not the kind of band that they were or are.
No, but it made their debut go triple platinum. So
of course it did. Yeah, it didn't hurt. I'll put it to you that way. It didn't hurt.
And Tom's pout can't have hurt either. Put it that way. Do you know?
Right. that is true. That is true. But to guys like me, who at the time were big into like thrash and the real heavy bands, I was like, Cinderella, no thanks. And now here I am all these years later, 30 plus years later, and I'm like, Cinderella, okay, I get it. Not what I thought they were, and actually a really good bluesy rock band. That's basically hard rock band. It's what they are, with a guy who sounds like a cross between Brian Johnson and Dan McCafferty from Nazareth. They got some cool riffs. I mean, a lot of slide guitar and like almost like these southern rock things going on, and just a tight band with a lot of good hooks. Some, a lot of ballads, some acoustic stuff. I mean, some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, not bad, not bad. So I'm a convert. It took long enough, right? But
as long as you get there in the end, that's the thing that matters.
That's right. So there's only 4 albums, guys. So this is not going to be an epic show. I probably talk now just more than the rest of the show will take. But so we're going to start off with our number 4, and I'll have Stephen kick us off with his number 4 choice.
Yes, well, I'm going to go with number 4. I Am Still Climbing. Okay, my journey with Cinderella is the exact opposite to yours, Peter, because I got into Cinderella because they were lumped together with Poison and Rat and Warrant and Trickster.
So we know what you were listening to back then.
I was listening
to, and it wasn't Exodus and Slayer and all that kind of stuff.
Well, right? It was as well, to be fair. I was still buying Exodus and Slayer too, but I must admit that my real, fix at that stage was what is now derided as hair metal. The lack of hair tells you all you need to know, but I hate that turn of phrase, because it means nothing at all. But anyway, so Still Climbing, that is the band's 4th and to date final album, unfortunately. This is from 1994, and it came 4 years after Heartbreak Station. And I think that probably most people are surprised that it arrived at all, because Tom Kiefer, who has one of the graveliest voices in rock, had lots of vocal issues after Heartbreak Station. So there was, I think, a worry that he was possibly done. Thankfully, he wasn't, and there's been some great solo albums that have come out in more recent times too. But I don't know why that album's just never really quite impacted on me the same way that the other 3 have. It's still a great record, I have to say. And I listened to it just last night, and was surprised by how much of it really still resonates, because it is an excellent hard rock blues album. And I put it that way around. I think they're a hard rock blues band. They're not a blues hard rock band. I think the hard rock comes first. The blues informs what's happening more than anything else. To a lesser and greater extent, depending on what part of the career you want to look at. But it's still a really good album. You've got Kenny Aronoff on drums on this one, who's played with anybody and everybody from John Mellencamp and John Bon Jovi to Bob Dylan, Neil Diamond. We know him from Iommi, Satriani,
Right.
Chicken Foot. I could keep going. Billy Ray Cyrus. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than Billy Ray Cyrus. Do you know that's what happened? And he does a fine job on this. But with all due respect to a guy who's a phenomenal drummer, he's no Fred Coury, which is a big thing for me. I have to say, I think he's heart and soul of the band to some extent. But you get great stuff on here. Bad Attitude Shuffle, hard to find the words. They do a slower song really well. Freewheeling, Talk is Cheap. Hot and Bothered is the one that's always stuck with me, and that's probably because I listened to it from, I think it was on the Wayne's World soundtrack, Hot and Bothered. It was one of those pieced together soundtracks with lots of songs from bands, some which were in the film, most which probably weren't. But that was and remains a great song. So that's my number 4, not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just the one that probably doesn't connect with me as much as the other ones.
Yeah, well, that's my number 4 as well. Yeah, I think it's a very solid album. For me, I think that half of it is really strong. The other half of it is good. It's just not, I don't find most of the songs on here as memorable as from the first 3 albums. And that's not really to take much away from it, because I think it's still a really solid record. I also think it's their bluesiest out of the 4 of them. In spots. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah. I think it's got a rival for that, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah. Definitely.
But Bad Attitude Shuffle, gritty, bluesy boogie, which I kind of dig when they do that. All Comes Down is pretty cool. That's got like these horns and these big like Malcolm Young style, riffs, which I kind of like. And they do that from time to time, which I think is fun. Blood from a Stone, I like. Darker, nice and heavy, cool wah-wah guitars. And you got those gravelly vocals, man, which I dig his voice a lot. I think he's a really good singer. And I always like that kind of more aggressive edge anyway. Title track's got some cool simmering Hammond organ, right? Nice slide guitar licks. I like this kind of rootsy, almost Southern rock vibe that permeates, quite frankly, their last 3 albums. I kind of dig that. Freewheeling, you mentioned, really good snarling rocker. Easy Come, Easy Go, big anthemic riff rocker. I don't know. I dig it. It's a good album. From any other band, if you weren't, the problem is the first 3 are really strong, and this is very enjoyable. It's just, to me, it's not quite up to the level of those other 3. Still good though.
Yep, completely agree.
Yep.
So my number 3, I'm going for the debut. So I'm going for Night Songs. We're at 1986, and this was huge, ginormous. Certainly in the States it was. Over there it was absolutely ginormous. They never quite got the same recognition over here. That style of music never really did, to be fair, but they still headlined when they played in the UK. And I saw them a couple of times. A couple of stories about that I'll bore you with in a moment. So this is still I mean, you can see on the back, if you can pick that up. There we go. I mean, we are in big hair territory here, aren't we? Do you know?
Yeah.
They've been dressed for the occasion, shall we say. And it gives the wrong vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There are elements of that kind of era in there in more ways than there are in the later 3 albums, but there's still an awful lot more depth happening here. As you say, Kiefer's vocals, I think, separate them out from, I mean, with all due respect, guys like Vince Neil, who's wailing and squealing away, doing what he does, and doing it very well, has to be said. Kiefer's a singer, And I think even at this stage, it was clear that Cinderella had listened to Aerosmith, they'd listened to the Stones, they'd listened to Humble Pie. I think they had proper, authentic roots about them, and that was the difference even at this stage. Interestingly, this album has Jody Cortez on drums, even though Fred Coury is all hair teased and all this sort of stuff on the cover.
Yep.
I don't know if Jody Cortez did anything after that, to be fair, but he does a fine job on this. You've got John Bon Jovi on some backing vocals on the album, so they had Friends in High Places. He seemed to pop up on a lot of upcoming bands' albums at that stage. But there's some great stuff on here. Night Songs, Shake Me, Nothing for Nothing. I love the rhythm of that song. I just love the way that it all comes together, and the vocals just hit every single beat, and I just love the way that it hits. Push Push, Nobody's Fool, Cinderella do a slow song really well, and that was one that resonates. And they've managed to put one or two on all of the albums that really hit home. So quite a stunning debut, as I say, triple platinum, right time, right place, but also some really, really good music. And that, even as someone that was thoroughly ensconced in that scene, wasn't always the case for the bands that made it massive. But Cinderella had the songs.
Right. Well said. Well said. All right. I'm going to go with Heartbreak Station, their third, coming in at number 3. I'm seeing a pattern here already. From 1990. Again, with their second album, they really started to do that kind of bluesy, more rootsy kind of sound quite a bit. That continued on, I think, even further here. I just think that's just the direction they were going in right from the debut. A lot of fun songs on this album. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, catchy ass song.
Yeah.
I love the horns, man. I love the slide guitars. It's a fun song. A lot of these tunes on these albums are just a lot of fun. What else we got here? Love's Got Me Doing Time, kind of funky. Again, Tom throwing in some wah-wah guitar licks from time to time, which I am a complete sucker for. So I gravitate towards that. Sick for the Cure. Also has some Southern rock vibes. I think maybe this album more than any of them has that feel, big time feel to me. It's got the piano. It's almost like a honky tonk piano. It's just this great kind of, rootsy boogie song. One for Rock and Roll is kind of almost like a country tune, kind of different. Good song, right? Dead Man's Road, swampy rock. Dig that. Love Gone Bad for me might actually be the best song on the album. I really dig that a lot. It's got some great riffs. Love the big layers of vocals, great chorus, awesome song. I think it's a really solid record. I mean, for me personally, maybe a couple too many acoustic based songs for me. That's just me, but I still think they're really good songs regardless. So yeah, number 3 for me. I dig it. Heartbreak Station.
Well, number 2 for me is album number 2. So Long Cold Winter, 1988. Rather boring cover. Great logo, to be fair. Yeah. On that. Good logo, which I wish it had on all 4 albums. It's not on Still Climbing. I'm a logo guy. Everyone knows that now. I'm a logo guy. I'm a sucker for a gimmick. So I saw the band on this tour. They headlined at the Edinburgh Playhouse back when they used to put on rock bands and not just big stage show sort of things. And I still...
And that is pronounced Edinburgh, right?
Edinburgh.
Okay, I've been corrected so many times because I always say Edinburgh, and I'm like, no, it's Edinburgh. I'm like,
Edinburgh, that's right. Edinburgh.
Like, why is it spelled the way it's spelled? Then all right, whatever. What do I know? Anyway, sorry.
Because we can.
Hey, we say things really weird here too in the US, so I totally get where you're going.
Don't get me started on Scottish place names. Then I'll have to explain why Milngavie is pronounced Mulgai, but we won't go there, so that's fine. Okay, so I still have, I rate this out today, I still have my cassette bootleg of my Edinburgh Playhouse show from Cinderella all those years ago. Oh, dearie me, this brought back memories.
Did you buy that or did you record that?
It wasn't me. I didn't record it. You used to go to record fairs and buy these from someone who had probably stood with their tape recorder in their jacket. That's so that they wouldn't get thrown out as a recording. And you can probably hear them singing this. There's the track list from the show.
There you go.
You can probably hear the person that recorded it singing more than Tom Kiefer can, because that's just the way that these things roll. But if you found the show that you were at, it was gold. Absolute gold. So this is still gold, and I've still got quite a few of these. Don't have many cassettes left, but I've kept all of these. This one didn't. They used to give you really bad photocopied pictures of a band member on the front. So the guy couldn't be bothered this time. He just knew there was a mug like me that was going to come and buy this muffled thing. And still go, man, I was there. But there you go. I was there. What I will say, though, is, and they admitted it later on, that they were massively jet lagged for this show. So actually, it was okay. It wasn't brilliant. It was okay. And it's a shame because the album's fantastic, I have to say. And as a guy that used to play the drums, I used to love playing the drums along to this album. I used to love Bad Seamstress Blues, the intro that goes into Falling Apart at the Seams, straight into Gypsy Road. I used to know the gap between the two songs so that I could come straight in on Gypsy Road, because I used to play this so much, this album. You've got Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone.
It's gone.
That's the one, and that's the hit. I think that was probably the biggest hit of all of them. But you get things like Fire and Ice on there. It's a great hard rock blues album, I have to say. And it was quite a jump from the debut as well, I think, in terms of, you know, authenticity and class and things like that as well. Not that there's anything wrong with the debut. So that's my number 2, Long Cold Winter.
It's also my number 2. 1988. Yeah, I mean, you listen to the debut and this back to back, and fairly different sound here. This is, you know, very much moving. I mean, their blues and boogie roots are really coming out in a big way. And you know, you listen to like half this album is like, okay, well, they obviously listen to the Stones and the Faces and Humble Pie, right? It's all right there, right? It's just, you can't miss it. I mean, Bad Seamstress Blues, Falling Apart at the Seams. I mean, that's straight out of that playbook, which is okay by me. Gypsy Road's the big party rocker of the album. Dig that. You know, you mentioned the big hit, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. That's a really good song. Really good song. I remember even back in the day when I was kind of just would not even give these guys the time of day. I was always like, yeah, that's not a bad little power ballad. I always thought that. And as I got older, I'm like, yeah, I actually kind of really like that song, right? Yeah. Go figure.
Yeah. It's a power ballad that I think transcends power ballads. It's not just following the same routine that they all followed. It's a really good song, and it's got a bit of blues about it too. So
it does, yeah, it absolutely does.
Yeah, I also believe that Tom was utterly heartbroken as he sang that song, because he's just such a believable singer. So
yeah,
you know, I think it's a true story.
Could very well be. I don't know. I'm sure everybody can sing that song at some point in their life, you know. So
yeah, I'm sure they probably can do, to be fair.
So that Last Mile. Another great song.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting to jump in there. On you go.
I'm got to talk about more songs here, Steven. Because there's a couple I want to really talk about. Second Winter, I think, it's got that AC/DC chug. Love it. Mm-hmm. More importantly, the title track is probably my favorite song on all these albums.
Yeah, that's a great song.
I'm a sucker for kind of slow, gritty blues rock, right? And that's what this song is. It's got that, you know, those roaring vocals from Tom. It's got the kind of the simmering Hammond organ in the background, and he comes in with this amazing extended blues solo. It's just like, I didn't know he had him in him. Had it in him. And I'm a Gibson Les Paul guy, as you can see right here. So, and I know that's what he played. But yeah, fantastic song, absolutely scorching solo. If you don't like it, another good hard rocker, cool riffs. Coming Home, I think, was another like minor hit here. What else? Fire and Ice, I think you mentioned blistering song. And I think Take Me Back is also really cool. And that kind of reminds me of Kiss a little bit. It's got the kind of like the Kiss riffs to it, right? Mm-hmm. You know? But yeah, you know what? I really debated my number 1 and 2. This was almost my number 1. I went back and forth on this a couple times over the last couple days. And then obviously everybody knows where I'm going. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, their first 2 albums for me are really, really strong.
Well, it's interesting for me. I mean,
and their third, because obviously it's your number 1.
Obviously, because my number 1 is, I'm taking the sleeve out here and everything, is Heartbreak Station. So we're at 1991, album number 3. And I didn't get this when it came out. I mean, obviously I did. I bought it when it came out. I didn't get it when it came out. It was too southern rocky, bluesy for me. And I was still, as I say, probably deep in the scene that they were meant to be in, but they really weren't. And it's fascinating now looking back and seeing how many big name reviews lumped them in with Poison and Motley Crue. Bands that I like. Don't think I don't like these bands. I like these bands, but bands like Poison and Motley Crue and Warrant, they hadn't listened to the album. They can't have listened to the album to stick Heartbreak Station with those bands. I mean, when were these bands actually, like, you're using gospel choir almost in their backing vocals and slide guitar that wasn't just there for a little bit of an embellishment in a slower song or something. And to me, it was a remarkably mature album that I only understood because somebody asked me if I wanted to go and see them. And I said, well, yeah, I saw them last time. They were good, but they weren't great. But if you want to go, I'll go. And we ended up going to the Livingston Civic Centre, I think it was called, which turned out to be a gym hall. Do you know, it was not a salubrious venue. I've never been there for any other reason. Who goes to Livingston for a music venue? They don't. It just doesn't happen. So it was one of those things where whoever booked the tour had no idea what was happening in Scotland. And therefore, because it was before I could drive, we had to get the train through. And as soon as we worked out what was happening, we realised we were going to miss the end of the show, which was not going to be a good thing. Bumped into a friend who promised me we could get a lift home. It's two of us. He said, no. He said, but you can both get in the car on the way back. We turned up at the car to go home to discover that it was a very small Talbot sort of European Chrysler thing, and there was already 5 of them. 5 of them. So that meant 7 of us went home in the back of this thing. There's 2 in the front and 5 in the back. My friend,
lengthwise.
Yeah, my friend, who was a young lady, who was not my girlfriend in my but she was a young lady that was massively into Cinderella, had to squeeze herself in the back with these guys. It was a very interesting journey home. Thankfully, the gig was phenomenal. It was absolutely fantastic. They brought the horns with them. They had the backing singers with them. It was a great show, and it just clicked in such a way that that's why Heartbreak Station is my favourite Cinderella album. Long way for the story, but that's why it clicked. And I must admit, I went home and I listened to it the next morning, and I don't know how long until it actually left the turntable, because it just kept getting played and played and played. And there's some amazing names involved in this album. John Paul Jones is doing string arrangements on a couple of songs on this album. I mean, pardon? That just doesn't make any sense at all, but it does when you hear Heartbreak Station and Winds Have Changed, because they're glorious. You've got Bashri Johnson doing percussion. Add that to Fred Coury's amazing power behind the kit, and it just all comes alive. I love the cowbell on this album. It's in and out of a lot of the songs. It's not just following the rhythm that you think it's going to follow. Love it to bits. Ken Hensley, who has sadly just left us, he's on this album. I mean, is Ken Hensley doing on this album? What? That's crazy.
Cozy Powell's on this album too. Cozy Powell with some drums also.
I mean, it's real authentic names that are on this album. It's incredible, isn't it? Do you know? It's, as I say, it's so authentic, and I struggle to pick out highlights because I like it all so much. Electric Love, as you say, that's just so damn dirty, that song. It really is, and it's just powerful and it's gritty. Make Your Own Way, I find that a massively uplifting song. Sick for the Cure, Heartbreak Station, that's another one that's just pitched perfectly. The More Things Change, that's how you open an album. That's how to get the party started. I just love that song. Love's Got Me Doing Time. I will stop now because I'll just name every song on the album. I really do, really do like Heartbreak Station. And you know, sometimes you like an album because it's got a story. This album has a story, and I like a story, and it takes you to a place and it takes you to a time. And I sat and listened to it last night just to make sure that it was as good as I thought it was, and it's as good as I think it is.
Well, that's all that matters, right?
Or I think it's as good as I think it is.
Right.
Put it that way.
That's all that matters. I've long said that a lot of times people's favorite songs, albums, bands are tied back to some kind of story. That's something they experienced in their lives, right? So there's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
I can pull tons of stuff off of this wall. It's like, yeah, you know why I love that one so much? It's because this is what happened when that album came out, and when I did this, or my friends and I did this, or you know, the girl I was dating at the time. That's music, right? Music is tied to times in our lives.
That's it. Yeah.
So and there have been a lot of times where I've in doing this on this channel for all these years, where I've looked at stuff and I've ranked stuff in a certain way, and I'm like, you know what, top to bottom, this album may be the strongest out of all of them, but I still like this album better because I did this when that album came out, and I have such great memories of it, right?
Yep, that's what good music should do, though. Good music should touch you in different ways. I think we all recognize that there are great songs and classic albums that you just can't argue with are such good albums, but that doesn't mean to say that they're part of your story in the same way. And music is such a part of all of our stories that we all bring our own experiences with it, and that's why we love it so much.
Yeah. That's why I never understand these people who are like, no, the best album they ever did is this album. It's a fact. It's like, it's not a fact. You can't quantify that, right? Maybe it's your favorite, maybe you think it's the best, but everybody else has a different experience with these. That's why I said we all hear these differently, right? As I'm flashing my number one. So, all right. So I went with the first album, which again, I had a hard time. Do I go with this one? Do I go with that one? I ultimately went with this one because I think this album is a absolute blast. And it's just, if you forget what they look like on the front and on the back, all right, because I'm not into this whole look, so to speak. It's really not what you hear when you put it on, right? You hear, like I said, this kind of mix of Brian Johnson and Dan McCaffrey, these huge vocals, these gravelly vocals of Tom Kiefer, right? You got bluesy guitar riffs all over the place. There's some pretty heavy stuff on here. You got Night Songs. The title track is big and crunchy. Shake Me is this great party tune. Nobody's Fool. I like that a lot. That's really good. What up? Nothing for Nothing. Rocks hard. It's got tons of groove. Once Around the Ride is raunchy as all hell, but lots of hooks. Hell on Wheels is, again, another one of those kind of 80s boogie tracks that they really do so well. Somebody Save Me is another great song. It's so memorable. I would say the only song on this album I really don't like is In From the Outside. For me, that's like kind of very glammy, and that kind of sits in with a lot of the other stuff that we talked about that I really don't care for too much. It's not awful. And Back Home Again is a good headbanging tune. So I don't know. I dig this. I like all these albums. Yeah. Again, I'm amazed that here in 2020, I'm doing this show and I'm talking about, I'm giving some love to these albums, which if you would have asked me 30 years ago, I'd be like, hell no to Cinderella. I grew up, right?
Well, and isn't that the fascinating thing, isn't it? Because that era of music, I think, is much derided. And as you'll have gathered, I mean, that's when I was growing up. That's when, rock ruled the airwaves. And even over here, these bands meant something. And that was very unusual in that sense. And I do think there's an awful lot of great music that came out of that scene. You've got bands like Winger, who are great musicians that made some great music and continue to make some great music. And everyone was lumped together because they were all dressed for the occasion. Do you know what I mean? They were all put on the back of their album covers. Most of them were obviously, not for me, but good looking guys. Do you know what I mean? They all had nice hairy chests and things. They would make Paul Stanley jealous. Do you know? And that was the look, and that's what was happening. And the guys liked it, and the girls liked it. So it all worked. But along the way, it's forgotten at the time even. There was a lot of great music too. And bands like Cinderella wrongly got not just lumped in with a scene, but it was forgotten that, or never even noticed that they were a great band making great songs. And it's lovely to be able to talk about them at this stage and give them the recognition that they deserve, because just a really authentic band.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about this before, but you have to wonder, the magazines and MTV again was portraying image over anything else above and beyond. And I think that hurt a lot of these bands. Great White's another band too, who were lumped into that category too. And they were not much different than these guys. They were just a bluesy rock band. That's really all they were. But yet they were portrayed in a different way. They had, a couple hits, and that's, what people gravitate towards. You got the videos with them, walking around with all the ladies and all this kind of stuff. It's like, that's what you think. So you think back at Cinderella and Great White and all these bands, and you're like, people talk about Tesla too. Tesla was not like one of those type of bands at all. I mean, so anyway, I'll get off my soapbox here, but yeah. So anyway, there you have it. Ranking the albums of Cinderella. Curious to see how everybody ranks these albums. There's only 4 of them. So if you know them, you love them, rank them. If you never, all right. So if you're someone like me who has always said, Cinderella, some crappy hair band. All right. Take it from me. Go back, listen to these albums. You can go right here on YouTube and they're all on there, and check them out, see what you think, and then come back to us. Cause that was me as well. And I got to say, I was wrong. I'm always willing to admit when I was wrong. And I was in this case. So there you have it. So this is on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube.
All the damn time.
That's right, all the damn time. So in case you missed it, all right, there's a little teaser video here on the channel. We announced today Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest, which is happening on November 21st. So that's a week from this coming Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a roughly 2.5-hour program. 20 plus artists appearing, going to have all sorts of, videos and things on there. It's going to be fantastic. Dora Pesh, Uriah Heep, Glass Hammer, Andy Powell from Wishbone Ash, Gentle Giant and Friends and Fans, all sorts of stuff. So go watch the little video, and make sure you check us out on Saturday. If you can't watch it live when it's happening, we will be obviously replaying it, so you'll be able to watch it at a later date. But it'll be broadcast live here on the channel on YouTube, as well as on our Facebook page. So wherever you find it easier to watch, go there and check it out. But there'll be all sorts of merch for sale too, and all the proceeds from the sale of the Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest shirts and memorabilia will be going to the Humane Society. Okay, that's our charity that we're doing. So there'll also be a link to give a donation directly to the Humane Society. So that's all coming up in a week and a half. And tonight, you do not want to miss my interview with drum legend Simon Phillips. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss it. It's an hour. It's fantastic. He tells some of the best stories I've ever heard in my life, talking to a lot of these rock stars and musicians. And I got off of that, and I was like on cloud nine. Such a cool guy, such great stories. I mean, he's played with everybody. He's got lots of great stories. So you don't want to miss that. That's going to be on tonight. After you watch this, stay tuned, and then you can watch that. So hope you don't have anything else going on tonight, folks, because you got to watch. You just sat through the Cinderella show, and now you got to sit through Simon Phillips. So I'm done. That's it. Mic drop. For Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you all next time. Have a good one.